Hey guys, this is Mr. V. I'll be doing a book review today. It will be the book review. It is The Dark Tower, the second Dark Tower book, and it's called The Drawing of the Three. I'll be discussing some of the book aspects of it, what I liked, what I didn't. I try not to do any spoilers, there's just very minor spoilers. Um, the first thing I want to say is if you have not read Dark Tower Book 1, just do not watch this book review. Start out, I have a review for the Dark Tower one. Start out with that book. You want to make sure that you have read the first Dark Tower book before getting into the second. I know there are people out there who say you can kind of skip the Dark Tower one or just read a summary. I do not suggest that, as there are a lot of important elements in the Dark Tower one that kind of move on into the Dark Tower 2, the book I'm going to be reviewing. And another factor is that I try to do very, very few spoilers. There would just be minor spoilers in my reviews, but you will hear some pretty major spoilers from the Dark Tower 1 when I do the review, because it's a series. By the way, if you guys see me looking down a lot, it's just because I have my phone and I just have different notes, so I try to not have spoilers in there. So that's why you'll see me looking down occasionally. But again, this is, if you guys have not read the Dark Tower 1, stop the review right now, go back to my Dark Tower 1 review, and then read the Dark Tower 1, The Gunslinger. But let's start with my review. Again, I am reviewing the Dark Tower Book 2, and that is called The Drawing of the Three. I was actually very surprised with this one. The reason being is, after reading the Dark Tower one, I had heard many things about it, and I read it. You can check my review about it. I thought it was below average. It was fairly far below average, and there were many factors for that. I'll just quickly go through. One of the main factors was that it didn't seem to flow well, because the Dark Tower one was made up of 5 parts that he had published in, I forget if it was a magazine or what it was, but the Dark Tower 2 was written as one book. So it flows just like a normal book, and that is a big factor. So one thing you should know about the Dark Tower 2, this picks up right where book 1 left off. It's about 5 or 7 hours after, I don't remember the exact time frame, right after he had talked to the Man in Black, where he'd gotten his tarot card reading and all of that, and he's on his quest to the Dark Tower now. So this takes off only like 5 hours. Again, I think it's 5 hours or 7 hours right after Dark Tower 1 ends. So that's why, again, you want to make sure you read Dark Tower 1, and it's my opinion, you don't even want to take too much of a gap between the books. But, you know, it's all how you guys want to see it. But I wouldn't take too much of a gap between it. And I would say that it is very different in terms of the structure. The structure of the book is very different. I had just talked about how the Dark Tower 1 was written in 5 different parts, and he kind of connected it, but it wasn't as smooth. But the Dark Tower 1 was written as just one book, so it just was very smooth. And it just, it was like a normal Stephen King book. It just was very smooth, and it just went through everything in a nice fashion. So that's why, if you were turned off by the Dark Tower 1, do not be worried for the Dark Tower 2. And as I had said, yes, the book links much better than the first, because, again, I'll have to keep repeating it, but the Dark Tower 1 was in 5 different parts, and then they kind of tried to link, or he tried to link it all together, and it somewhat linked, but not really as smoothly, where Dark Tower 2, it isn't that way. So, there are areas that need to be linked, but he links it very smoothly. So, that was a great part, and I'll be honest, I was a little bit nervous coming into Dark Tower 2 because of Dark Tower 1. But after just even a few pages, I started to see that I had nothing to fear about the Dark Tower 2, that it went much like his other books. The thing is, you should know that yes, there is a lot more action in this book and keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's tough to say, maybe there's not a lot more action, but yeah, there still is a lot more action, but it keeps you on the edge of your seat a lot more than the Dark Tower one. This one kept me on the edge of my seat to where I wanted to see what happened next. I wanted to keep seeing what the next chapter was about. How did he resolve something? And I won't just keep comparing it to the Dark Tower 1, but it just kept you on the edge of your seat much more like a regular Stephen King book. But you should know, and again, I'm going to try not to just compare it to the Dark Tower 1, but it's good to compare it to the first Dark Tower just because some people may be a little nervous after reading that one to see should they continue with the series. But it linked much better. And he is put into much more different situations, a lot more interesting. A perfect example, and it's just a very minor spoiler, you find out within the first 10 to 20 pages, is that Roland is walking along a beach, and then he sees a door just standing on the beach. And he walks up to the door and he sees nothing behind the door, and it's just a door standing there. But when he opens the door, it's almost like a whole new world is in there. It's like he sees things from a whole different perspective. It's like he sees things from someone else's perspective. But then when he goes and looks around behind the door, there is still nothing there but beach. So that's why I said, and then it makes you want to think, okay, what is happening? And that's why I said it keeps you on the edge of your seat much more. And it is definitely a very interesting aspect. You should know that this book still has a lot of character development. And because there are other characters that are introduced in this book. So it still has a lot more character. It still has a lot of character development. This book is I forget the exact page count, but I think it's about 500 pages, and it still is a lot of character development. Because they introduce new characters. He sometimes will devote like 100 pages to that new character, and you still don't know which characters are going to be major and which ones are going to be minor in the series and in the book. Towards the end of the book, you can tell who's going to be the major characters. But when you're reading it, sometimes he will devote, again, like 100 or more pages to one character and getting that development. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but again, this is still like the first book. I said the first book was about Roland and his character development, where this book is about other characters' developments. And they're still developing Roland's character as well. He didn't just completely forget Roland and stop the story. The story keeps moving along, but he develops the other characters a lot more. So that's why I said there is still a lot of character development. The first book was a lot of character development, and this one still has a lot. As I said, he devotes sometimes over 100 pages to developing it, but while still moving the story along. It's not like he stops the story just for one character per se. Sometimes those characters will have a story, but it links to Roland's world. And the way I kind of look at it is I think he's developing these characters so heavily because the Dark Tower is almost like it's a series. It's like one, if you take the Dark Tower as a series, it's like one major book. And, the first Dark Tower book, The Gunslinger, was just like a couple chapters. This one, The Drawing of the Three, is just a couple more chapters, because after this, there is still 5 more books. You can even say 5.5 or 6 more books if you count the book 4.5. So there is still a lot of progress that we don't know yet. So that's why it's like one big series, and that's why we're still getting the character development, because we're kind of still in the beginning of the series. Book 2 is still the beginning. So that's the way I look at it. The other thing is that yes, you get a much better sense of who Roland is. After the first book, I felt you kind of got a pretty good sense of who Roland is, and that's, again, why I say I always suggest reading the first book. But you got a pretty good sense of who he was in book one, but book two just reaffirms it. It kind of, I don't want to say sets in stone, but it reaffirms it, and it's just kind of like showing more and more who he is. You start learning more about him, and it's through different situations, different the way he talks, and you start to get a much clearer picture of who he is. I already had a clear picture after book one, but this one reaffirms it, and now I'm pretty confident on who I know Roland is and what he will do to get to the Dark Tower. And Stephen King does it beautifully through different storylines and different conversations he has with people. So that is a great part. And the thing is, you can tell for this book that it is setting it up for a big series. I had already planned on reading the whole series, but you could tell he is developing the series, not just like one book. Yes, the book has a lot of entertainment. It has its own storylines in between, but you can tell it is becoming like an epic series, and he is setting it up for that. So I just thought it was a very nice book, and I rank my books anywhere from a 0 to 10. 0 being horrible, 5 is average, and 10 being absolutely phenomenal, like go get that book today. Very few books reach it to a 10, that I should be said. Not many reach it to a 0 either, but again, a 5 is average. I would rank this book anywhere from a 7 to a 7.5, and that's pretty good with a 5 being average. I ranked, you can go back and check my previous review, the Dark Tower one, I put that at like a 2.5, maybe a 3, but I put that one like at a 2.5. But this one I would put at a 7 or 7.5, showing how much better I thought this book was, and how much more entertaining, and how it just flowed so much better than the Dark Tower one. And it was just a great book overall. So if you had any concerns about reading this after reading the Dark Tower one, you should not, and that you should go out and get the book. If you have any questions or you want to comment on anything, please leave the comments below. I hope you click the like button and the subscribe button. And thank you for watching us. This is Mr. V. Thank you for watching.